Do you struggle with overthinking and calming down your mind? You're not alone. I struggle with this my entire life, and all the clients that I've worked with also are overthinkers and high achievers. And I know that there are certain practices that can really help you to calm that inner chatter. In this episode, I'm going to break it down to 6 core practices that can support you to have a calmer mind and to have less overthinking. Very first place to begin is a tech detox. And this is because the phone, computer, technology in general is so much information and so much input that it makes our inner voice and inner chatter louder. What you'll realize is after you've listened to a podcast or done certain things or checked 50 different emails and then 5 WhatsApp chats, your inner chatter and noise has just been amplified. Now, of course, we live in today's society where we still need to check technology regularly. But if this is what you also do in your spare time, at the weekends, in the evenings, a lot of the time, your inner chatter gets louder and louder, and that noise gets really amplified. And we need space to process all the information that we've been given. And if we don't have that space, then maybe you'll struggle to fall asleep at night, or maybe the second you're on your own for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you need to put on music or something as a compensation because it's become so loud and noisy and messy in your mind that you need something to compensate for this noise, and so that you don't hear it as much because it is so amplified. When you have a tech detox, whether it's all your evenings or one day at the weekend or the whole weekend or even longer if you can, you will realize that the noise starts to diminish. That really is the first place to begin, because if you have less input coming in, it will calm it down. But of course, that's not the only practice that can support you. This is really just setting a foundation. The second tool is self-compassion. I've spoken about self-compassion many times before, and this is because very often the most obsessive thoughts are quite negative, and very often if you have a strong self-critical voice, this will take up a lot of the mental space. Oh, I should have said that. Why didn't I say that? Why didn't I do that? Maybe I could have done that. Why was I late again? Why did this happen? All this creates so much noise and friction in our mind. It's intolerable. I mean, it really is very, very noisy and very, very upsetting. Now, when you learn self-compassion, that's a lot less noisy. Just like, hey, yeah, didn't work out, shame, I'll do my best next time. Done. Versus a 2-hour monologue, internal monologue around how deeply you messed up, how you're the worst person in the entire universe, and how could you mess it up so badly. Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit, but you get the picture. I'm sure you've experienced these long inner monologues of high self-criticism that really lead absolutely nowhere and are totally counterproductive and don't help you in any way, shape, or form. When you learn self-compassion, that actually decreases the noise, the chatter, the inner volume of all those thoughts, because a lot of them are self-critical, negative things, or defensive, trying to justify, well, of course I had to say that because this, and otherwise I'll think that. And you don't need to do all of that because you're no longer playing with that internal critic. So self-compassion can really support you to decrease the amount of thoughts that are really overpowering, and the amount of repetition where you repeat over and over again certain thoughts and patterns and scenarios, things that have happened maybe sometimes even years ago, and you just repeat to justify, to understand, or because you feel bad. All of this decreases when you have a greater self-compassion. So it can really support you to have a calmer mind once you develop a more compassionate approach towards yourself. The third tool is meditation. I've spoken about meditation many times before, and this is because it works. It strengthens your prefrontal cortex, it changes the entire structure of the brain, and it helps you with decision making, prioritizing, thinking more clearly, but also with decreasing the thoughts because you're able to observe them from an external perspective. So you see your thoughts externally, and this helps you to detach and realize you are not your thoughts. Shocker, right? We're so merged with our internal world and our internal thoughts that we think we need to believe every single one and that we are what we think, but they're just thoughts. In the same way, you're not your hand. Why would you be your thoughts? It's a part of the body, it's a part of the brain, And it helps us in many ways and it hinders us in many other ways. And it just comes from a mix of past experiences, your current environment, society. Change your current environment, your thoughts change. If they were real all along, why would they suddenly be different when you're on holiday by the beach than when you're in the office every day? It's your environment, it's your peers, it's your past experiences. Now, your past experiences are still the same when you're on the beach, but maybe other past experiences come to your mind and shape your thoughts then. And that's why transformational work often comes from changing your thoughts and actually working through some of these past conditioning of your past thoughts, because a lot of them don't help us. But this is a bit a sidetrack from our topic on overthinking, but you might want to also analyze some of your default conditioned thinking when you have this meditation practice. Now, linked to this, practice 4 is the zooming out in general. You don't have to be in a meditation practice to do this. At any given moment when you're walking down the street and your mind is buzz, 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 you can press the button pause and just zoom out and see, what are you thinking right now? How is this affecting your emotions? How is this affecting your overall attitude? Are you thinking positively or negatively? Or are you thinking of things that make you happy or joyful? Are you thinking of regrets? What's actually happening in your psyche? When you develop a meditation practice, what happens is that this zooming out factor happens more often naturally, because during the meditation practice you see your thoughts so clearly. Then during the day you'll see suddenly that you've zoomed out and you're observing your own thoughts. You can still do this without having a meditation practice. It's just more likely to happen. It'll be easier for you to put this and implement this once you've been meditating regularly. So they sort of go hand in hand. When you zoom out and you're a fly on the wall and you see your own thoughts, it also helps you to not be absorbed in the narrative and to calm down the mind and realize, whoa, my brain was going at 200 miles an hour about this one little thing. Maybe it's not that important. And acceptance, self-compassion, letting go, changing your physiology, breathing deeply also helps, being a connector also helps. And then you calm down and then you're able to be more present with a calmer mind. And this links to tool and practice number 5, which is mindfulness. And people confuse meditation and mindfulness. Meditation is the practice that you do regularly when you focus on your breath or your breathing. Mindfulness is being present in the moment anytime during the day, when you're being creative, when you're running, when you're working. It's being fully present with what you're doing. And this is directly linked to less inner chatter in your mind. If you want to suddenly become more present and mindful and you realize you're caught up in your own head and all your thoughts, all you need to do is to focus on your 5 senses. Just think, what are 5 things I'm seeing right now? And just look around, 5 things. What are 4 things that I can hear right now? What are 3 things that I can touch? What are 2 things that I can smell? And what's 1 thing I can taste? And when you do that, I guarantee within less than a minute, there's a friend of mine, a coach also, who gave a workshop, and she did this in the whole co-working space. And within less than a minute, I think maybe 30 seconds, the whole group went really quiet. Everyone was really still. Everyone was really present. Now, this is fast. This you can do at any moment, whether it's before an interview or a conversation or a work thing you need to do that's important. You just tune into all your senses, the inner chatter calms down, and then you're able to put all of your focus on the present moment and have less thoughts running around your brain at all time. And practice number 6 is leaving yourself vocal messages. When my mind is really chatty and really noisy, I leave vocal messages to myself, which is essentially vocal journaling. Instead of journaling and writing everything down in a diary, I find it takes too long to do this, and it's a lot faster to just leave a vocal message. And I do this very often at the end of the day to recap the whole day. As I'm walking home, I will leave a whole vocal message of what happened, what were my thoughts, where did I struggle, what was I happy about, what went well, what do I need to think further, what am I not sure about. And I will leave all of this. Sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's half an hour, literally my whole commute I'm talking on my own. It's a bit weird, I get that, but then again I'm recording these episodes talking to myself also. They're really not that different. When you practice having a podcast and done, hundreds of episodes, it's probably not that hard to leave vocal messages. But it's a bit like leaving a vocal message to a friend. It's just there's no one on the recipient end. Actually, this is how it started. I was leaving vocal messages to one of my closest friends. And then it got really long, like 20, 30 minutes. I thought, I can't leave these podcasts to her all the time. I thought, let me just leave them to myself as a way of processing the day. And the thing is, it really, really works. Because when you're leaving, you still have all these thoughts about that email, that thing, that meeting, that business idea you had. And the brain is really like noisy trying to process everything. And what often would happen is I'd come home to my husband and pour it all out on him. That means that all our evenings are spent discussing business and work. And to be honest, that's not necessarily how I want to spend every single evening. And I thought, okay, I will just leave these vocal messages to myself, and it helps to process everything. You clarify what one or two core points you need to think further, and the overthinking and the inner chatter stops. And this is because I wish we could just do this through thinking, and sometimes we can, but actually formulating it out loud or writing it down, it's the same thing with journaling, clarifies and simplifies and stops the overthinking chatter in our mind. If you just think about the whole day walking all the way home and you don't want to look weird leaving a vocal message and just think about it all the way home, it can work, it can help, but you often end up in these loops repeating over and over again the same thing or not quite finishing a thought, and you still go home and you suddenly need to express it. At least if you're like me. Generally, people who are slightly more introverted need to think about it and then maybe write it down. If you're more extroverted, you generally need to talk about it. And turns out it doesn't even have to be to an actual person, but leaving a vocal note can also work. Just verbalizing things really, really, really helps. Just a thought. Might not be a jam, but I swear I've come to a lot of conclusions and a lot of emotional processing through just vocalizing things. And the good thing about vocal messages to the universe, which is similar to journaling, is the receiver is neutral. You don't get any advice, you don't get any comments, you don't get any great or terrible. It's just all neutral, which also stabilizes your emotions because you're not getting like cheered on or also diminished or any sort of emotional response, which is actually quite nice. And quite soothing. So this is another practice that I invite you to try if you have an overthinking, noisy mind. I hope this has been useful for you. I know how many of us struggle with overthinking. Limit the input through tech, have more output, verbalize things, and be more present, more grounded through meditation practice and mindfulness techniques, which can help you to be more present and have less of a noisy mind and brain all of the time. If you're new to the show, my name is Katie Stoddard. I work as a high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, founders, often who struggle with ADHD. If you're interested in booking a coaching session, you can fill in the form below. I work with a few entrepreneurs one-on-one to support them in growing their business and thriving in both life and business. Please leave comments, ideas, thoughts, anything you have in the comments below. I read every single one and answer them all myself. I'm very excited to hear what thoughts do you have on overthinking, what has helped you to calm down your own thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in and see you in the next episode.